Hello, my name is Franco Roca. I'm the chair of Building Smart France, which is the chapter of Building Smart International, and I'm also a board member of Building Smart International. My day-to-day job is innovation director for the French Federation of Real Estate Developers, which brings together all the developers and real estate developers in France for office and non-residential and residential new buildings construction and renovation. And I'm also a board member of RICS.
I am Øyvind Roth. I'm Specialist Director at the Norwegian Building Authorities, where I have been for 25 years working with digitalization. Mainly in digital building permit, digital building logbooks, building information modeling, and so on. Present, I'm chair of CEN/TC 442, building information modeling, and the corresponding ISO committee, ISO TC 59 SE 13.
According to me, the main barrier is really the point that is based on transparency, interoperability. Clearly, when we look at how to transfer information and databases about a building or an infrastructure or whatever, let's say a construction, we are always facing organization of data which are different. And that's why the work that is conducted by Building Smart and which has led to the development of the IFC standard is really based on a common data environment. It's clear that if we want to exchange and share data, we need to find the information about a product or material at the same place in the organization list of data. And the image I could take is in finance, you have in accountancy a clear plan of financial information which is organized and always the same for every company in a country and every company in the world, because we have international accountancy plan. So it's clear that the gap we have to fulfill now and what we have to succeed in the coming years is really to have this common data environment which will look like the organization plan of information for financial information. It will be the same for buildings, and this is where the Digital Building Logbook has a clear step to go ahead to put for everyone an organization of data which will be shared, transparent, and which create the interoperability from different stakeholders when they have to speak about a building.
I think it's important that it's possible to share data across different stakeholders. I think to make one huge database is very complicated and very costly and so on. So I don't think that will happen. So it's important to have data with its source to those who actually collect them and use them in their daily work. So if they, for example, can provide the data accessible on the internet, so other stakeholders, for example, on national level, on a national building database, can get access to this data, which again can be published on the EU level, can get access to the data. I think it's possible, but then you need to do it in a way that all these different stakeholders can communicate and get access to the data and get something meaningful out of the data and also trust the quality of the data. We have most of the standards needed, both from the building information model standardization, but also from the internet standards by W3C and other standardization bodies have made so the technology is there. But on the standardization level, the standards can use to support different use cases. You need a level on top of the standards to support your use case. So this database model you have made, this framework, is this level that tell that this is the way we use the standards to ensure interoperability, communication, and all that stuff for the use case, the digital building logbook.
Yes, Digital Building Logbook clearly has an action to deliver, which is not linked to the language or to the way it will be expressed. And again, it will not be linked to create the universal database, which will be clearly, I think, a dead end. We need to have a lot of databases because from different point of view, from industry players, from developers, from engineers, architects, facility managers, property managers, everybody needs different level of information on the same product, same material, which is embedded into a building or a construction or an infrastructure, and whatever the stage of this construction is, development, construction, or in use. And this is where the DBL should set up this minimum organization plan and this, let's say, common data environment will be clearly defined, which help everyone to find an information always under the same tag in a database, whatever the database is. And in that case, you can have a database with a lot of information or a database with less information. And we apply the same philosophy in order to have a taxonomy of information, which will be always the same and that will be never touched. So then we can share and exchange easily the information. Open data formats are clearly the key also, because if we have a closed system where the exchange can't be done and needs to go through to go from a system to another, you have two main traps. One is to lose a part of information, and the other one is to lose the tracking and the history of the data. So that's why the open format help and open the door to a full tracking and to keep the track record about the data. And this is key, because in the next years, when you will have to, let's say, fulfill for an investor your sustainability reporting database, then you will have to link your building and performance in terms of energy, carbon emissions, embedded carbon, also to data which are embedded into databases from industry. So you will need to track the information. And this is really key to keep to have this possibility to tag a product and track the information from industry till the end users and the facility managers. And also it's something which opened the possibility to not only have a tracking of the data in the BIM model or the digital twin, we need also to collect and connect the digital twin with the physical reality. And this is where we are, for example, working a lot with GS1, which is the company in charge of the barcodes, because we need to connect the digital twin, the products which are in the database, and the real products which are built in the building or maintained in the building, and to have a capacity to recall the industry, to have more details, or to know how to replace a part, or to work on the maintenance. And it opens really a field of access.
Everyone should use the data, the software tools and everything they need for their purpose. For example, a company collecting data need to have software supporting their needs. On other levels, they have different kind of software, and you use this open format to communicate between different software, between different platforms. So you can then share the data and the meaning of understand the meaning of the data across software and platforms. And you can still use the tools you need on the level you are. So that's the reason why open data formats is so important to ensure this. The other ways is quite different. Everyone needs to have the same platform and the same software. That will never happen again, and I don't think it's a good idea either.
Information access, and again, Digital Building Logbook as a key action to manage and to maintain the interoperability during the timeline and the time frame of a building, which is not 1 year, but which is 40, 50 years. And we are talking about decades And this is something where interoperability is key, because you can't rely on systems where you need to upgrade your software every 2 or 3 years. You need to have really an access for a long period of time.